You come here now. The command sliced through the heavy silence like steel. Amara's fingers went rigid on the door handle of the servants' quarters, pulse hammering against her ribs. That voice, cold, absolute, belonged to a man who never repeated himself. Tae Jin ruled Seoul's shadows from a fortress that overlooked the city like a hawk, surveying its hunting ground. For 3 years, Amara had drifted through his empire like smoke, scrubbing floors in rooms he rarely occupied, preparing elaborate meals he barely acknowledged, surviving by becoming part of the wallpaper she'd mastered invisibility. Until this moment. She pivoted slowly. Down the long corridor, framed by his bedroom doorway, he stood. Crimson stained the pristine white of his dress shirt. His jaw carried a fresh bruise, dark purple spreading along the left side. A handgun rested casually on the nightstand behind him, and beyond that, Seoul's glittering skyline burned through floor-to-ceiling glass like dying stars. He wasn't studying her like hired help. He was looking at her like she was oxygen. I said now, Amara. Her body moved before conscious thought could intervene. She'd learned within her first week that hesitation around Tae Jin had consequences. Men who hesitated ended up floating in the Han River by morning. She crossed the threshold into his private domain, a space she'd cleaned countless times but never truly entered. Leather, expensive cologne, and the metallic tang of blood filled her senses. The door whispered shut behind her. Not locked, just closed. Sir, you're injured. Her voice emerged smaller than she'd intended. Sit down. He gestured toward his bed. She complied immediately, hands folded tight in her lap, gaze fixed downward. Her uniform suddenly felt paper-thin, the air too dense to breathe. Tae Jin moved to the window, presenting his back. For a stretched moment, nothing. Outside, sirens wailed somewhere in Seoul's restless heart, another crime unfolding, another discovery being made. This city never slept, and neither did its demons. Do you have any idea how long I've been conscious? His voice dropped lower, almost human. No, sir. 72 hours straight. He turned to face her directly. Up close, the exhaustion was devastating. Dark shadows carved deep trenches under his eyes. A fresh split opened his lower lip. Each time I try to close my eyes, I see that gun barrel pointed at my skull. Every time I start drifting off, I feel the betrayal crushing me all over again. Amara's throat constricted. She'd overheard kitchen whispers. An assassination attempt 3 nights prior. His most trusted lieutenant, purchased by rival Yakuza forces Tae Jin, had killed the traitor with nothing but his bare hands, but the paranoia clung like cigarette smoke. I need someone present. He moved closer. Just be here. Her heartbeat thundered. She understood perfectly what those words typically meant in a house like this. What men in his position expected from women in hers. Sir, I really don't think. I'm not asking you to think. His tone sharpened, then softened again, something flickering behind the ice. Everyone who gets close to me ends up dead, Amara. But you've been here 3 years and you're still breathing. That has to mean something. Before I continue with what happened next, subscribe to Afro Korean Drama TV and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. She lifted her gaze, really looked beyond the reputation, beyond the blood and brutality. She saw the bullet wound poorly dressed beneath his shirt, the way his hands trembled slightly when he thought she wasn't observing. The exhaustion that transformed him from king to drowning man. Just tonight, she whispered. Then we pretend this never happened. His laugh carried bitterness. If only forgetting worked that easily. Rain started tapping against the windows. The city noise muted into distant white noise. He sat beside her, maintaining space, just existing in the same atmosphere. For the first time in 72 hours, his shoulders dropped slightly. Tell me something, he said. Something genuine, not the lies people tell me to stay alive. Amara hesitated. I'm terrified of you. Good. You should be. But I'm more terrified of what happens if I walk out of this room and tomorrow you're found dead, because then your replacement takes over and he won't be as quiet as you are." Tae Jin's eyes narrowed. "Quiet? Is that your word for me? You don't scream when you execute people. You don't make spectacles. In this world, that qualifies as quiet." He studied her like she was a puzzle missing pieces. Then slowly, deliberately, he reached for her hand. His palm was warm, calloused, scarred. "Stay tonight," he said again, not commanding this time. Asking. She nodded. What unfolded next was slow, careful. He didn't force anything he didn't take. He asked permission with every touch, every breath. And when she whispered yes, it felt less like surrender and more like falling into something neither could name outside, rain transformed into storm. Inside, two people who'd existed in silence found something neither could articulate. Dawn arrived pale and unforgiving. Amara woke to empty sheets and cold mattress. For a heartbeat, she wondered if she'd hallucinated it. The vulnerability, the tenderness, the way he'd held her like she was precious instead of disposable. Then she noticed the money on the pillow. Crisp bills folded precisely. Payment. Her stomach twisted violently. She dressed rapidly, hands shaking, and slipped from his room before anyone could witness her exit. The hallway stretched longer than usual. The walls seemed to press inward, judging. In the kitchen, two guards leaned against the counter, coffee steaming in their fists. Boss used her like he uses everyone. One of them laughed, didn't even make it to breakfast. The other guard snorted, and she probably thought she was different. Amara's nails bit into her palms. She kept moving, head down, invisible again. But something inside her had fractured. Not her heart. She'd guarded that too carefully, something deeper. The last fragment of hope that she might matter. She made it to the servants' bathroom before nausea overwhelmed her. Bile seared her throat. She gripped the sink, staring at her reflection, pale, hollow-eyed, marked by a man who hadn't stayed to see her wake. Mrs. Park found her there 10 minutes later. "Child," the older woman said softly, closing the door behind them. "What did he do?" "Nothing I didn't consent to." Amara's voice was flat. Mrs. Park had been head housekeeper for 15 years. She'd watched girls come and vanish. She knew the patterns. She touched Amara's shoulder gently, a maternal gesture in a house devoid of warmth. "You're stronger than you realize," Mrs. Park said, "but strength won't protect you here." Amara wiped her mouth, straightened her uniform. "I know he won't call for you again." Amara met her eyes in the mirror. Men like him never look back. But 3 weeks later, staring at the pregnancy test in her trembling hands, she realized how catastrophically wrong she'd been. Not one line. 2, not one heartbeat. 3, triplets. Her knees buckled. She collapsed on the bathroom floor, test clutched in her fist, and felt her entire existence implode, Tae Jin's children growing inside her. 3 lives that would become targets the instant their existence became known. Mrs. Park's voice echoed in her memory. "Strength won't protect you here." No, but disappearing might. That night, Amara made a decision that would haunt her for 5 years. She accessed the mansion's emergency vault, the one she'd discovered while cleaning, the one with a security camera blind spot, and took enough cash to vanish completely. The red camera light blinked in the corner. She froze. Had it captured her? Or was she already a ghost? Outside Tae Jin's office, she heard his voice, low and dangerous, negotiating with men who communicated in threats. He was alive, untouchable, emperor of his blood-soaked empire, and she was carrying his heirs into darkness. "You're pregnant." The clinic nurse's voice was clinical, detached. Amara sat on the examination table, paper crinkling beneath her, staring at the ultrasound screen like it might suddenly clarify everything. 3 distinct shapes. 3 flickering heartbeats. "Triplets," the nurse continued, adjusting her glasses. approximately 6 weeks along. You'll need prenatal vitamins, regular checkups, and I can't return here. Amara's voice cut through the rehearsed speech. The nurse paused, pen hovering over her chart. I'm sorry. I can't come back. I can't tell anyone. Can you print the image? Just one copy. The woman's expression shifted, recognition dawning. She'd witnessed this before. Women who couldn't afford to be mothers. Women running from something. She didn't ask questions, she just printed the ultrasound and slid it across the desk. Amara tucked it into her jacket and exited through the back, Seoul's streets pressed in around her as she walked. Neon signs bleeding colour into puddles. Traffic humming its endless song. She'd stolen money for the test from the grocery budget. Small enough not to be noticed, large enough to confirm what her body had been screaming for weeks. Mrs. Park was waiting in the servants' quarters when Amara returned, hands folded in her lap, like a grandmother preparing to deliver devastating news. Sit, child. Amara obeyed, exhaustion settling into her bones. Mrs. Park didn't waste time. You're carrying his children. Not a question. A statement Amara's silence confirmed everything. The older woman sighed, deep and weary. She reached up and pulled down her collar, revealing a faded scar across her collarbone, jagged. Deliberate. I had a son once, Mrs. Park said quietly, 12 years old. Beautiful boy. He witnessed a gang execution walking home from school. They killed him 3 days later to keep him quiet. Her fingers traced the scar. This is what I received when I tried to stop them. Amara's throat tightened. I've worked in this house for 15 years because I have nowhere else to go. But you, Mrs. Park gripped Amara's hands, you still have a chance. If Tae Jin discovers this, he'll either lock you away like a trophy or use those babies as leverage against his enemies. Either way, you lose. What do I do? You disappear tonight. Amara shook her head. He'll find me. He has people everywhere. Not everywhere. Just Seoul. Mrs. Park stood, moving to the small closet. She pulled out a worn duffel bag. Busan. Coastal city, 3 hours by bus. I have a cousin there. She owes me a favor. She'll give you work. No questions. Mrs. Park, I can't ask you to. You're not asking. I'm telling. She began packing clothes, toiletries, the emergency cash Amara had hidden under her mattress. The late bus departs at 2 a.m. Security shift changes at 1:45. That's your window. Amara's hands trembled as she took the bag. What if he comes after you? Let me worry about that. Mrs. Park cupped Amara's face, her touch gentle. You protect those babies. That's all that matters now. At 1:30 a.m., Amara stood in the mansion's kitchen, staring at the emergency vault. The camera in the corner blinked red. Steady. Watching. She'd cleaned this room 1,000 times. She knew the blind spot was 3 feet to the left, behind the industrial refrigerator. She moved carefully, slipping into shadow. Her fingers found the keypad. Numbers Mrs. Park had whispered earlier. Codes the woman had memorized from years of observing without being seen. The vault clicked open. Cash. Stacks of it. Tae Jin's emergency fund for operations gone wrong. Bribes. Disappearances. Amara took 5 bundles, enough to survive. Not enough to trigger immediate alarm. She tucked them into her jacket lining and closed the vault. The camera never saw her face. Outside, Mrs. Park was executing her diversion. The smell of smoke drifted through the corridors. Small. Contained. Just enough to pull guards toward the kitchen entrance. Shouts echoed. Footsteps pounded. Amara slipped through the servants' door into the night. The bus station was nearly empty at this hour. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows across cracked tile. Amara bought her ticket with cash. Hood pulled low, eyes down. The clerk barely looked at her. She boarded the bus and claimed a seat at the back, away from the few other passengers. A college student with headphones, an elderly man dozing against the window, a woman clutching a bouquet of wilted flowers. As the engine rumbled to life, Amara's phone vibrated in her pocket. Unknown number. But she knew. The screen glowed. Where are you? Her finger hovered over the delete button. Outside the window, Seoul's lights began to fade, replaced by darkness and stretches of empty highway. She turned off the phone completely and closed her eyes. The bus pulled away at 2:03 a.m. Behind her, in a mansion overlooking the city, Tae Jin stood in his bedroom, staring at a locked door, and an unanswered message dawn broke over Seoul, with the indifference of a city that had witnessed too much blood. Tae Jin hadn't slept again. But this time, insomnia had nothing to do with assassination attempts or Yakuza threats. His bedroom door was still locked from the inside. He checked himself at 6 a.m., irritated that Amara hadn't arrived with his morning coffee. When he entered the servants' quarters to find her, her bed was made. Her locker was empty. She was gone. Choi Min-woo. His voice cracked through the mansion like a whip. His lieutenant appeared within seconds. Crisp suit, sharp eyes. A man who'd survived 5 years at Tae Jin's side by being efficient and invisible. Yes, boss. Find her. Min-woo didn't ask who. He'd seen the way Tae Jin had looked at the quiet maid. The way he'd kept her employed when others were dismissed for smaller infractions. I'll pull security footage now. Within the hour, Min-woo returned to Tae Jin's office with a tablet. She disappeared sometime after 1:45 a.m. Kitchen fire provided cover. Mrs. Park was involved. She's the one who triggered the alarm. Tae Jin's jaw tightened. Bring me Mrs. Park. The older woman arrived 15 minutes later, flanked by 2 guards, but walking with her head high. She'd known this moment would come. Where is she? Tae Jin's voice was deceptively calm. Gone. I can see that. Where? Mrs. Park met his gaze without flinching. Somewhere you can't hurt her. His fist slammed against the desk. Do you have any idea what you've done? She could be working for my enemies. She could be. She's pregnant. The room went silent. Tae Jin stared at the woman as if she'd spoken in a foreign language. What? 6 weeks. Triplets. Mrs. Park's voice was steady. She didn't run because she betrayed you. She ran because she's terrified of what you'd do to those children. The words hit like bullets. Tae Jin's mind raced. Timelines. Possibilities. The night 3 weeks ago when he'd let his guard down for the first time in years. Get out, he said quietly. Sir, Min-woo started. Everyone out. Now. They obeyed. The door closed. Tae Jin stood alone in his office, staring at the city through bulletproof glass. Somewhere out there, Amara was carrying his children. 3 lives he didn't know how to protect. 3 lives that made him vulnerable in ways a bullet never could. He picked up his phone and dialed. I need every resource we have, he said when the line connected. Bus stations, train terminals, airports. A black woman, mid-20s, travelling alone. Find her. But even as he gave the orders, part of him wondered if he should find her. If bringing her back would save her or destroy her. Min-woo worked through the night, pulling footage, tracking leads. By morning, he had something. Boss. He entered Tae Jin's office with a flash drive security camera near the vault. She was careful, but he plugged it in. The screen showed Amara slipping into the blind spot, the vault opening briefly, her silhouette moving quickly before disappearing again. She stole from me. Tae Jin's voice was flat. Emergency fund. 5 bundles. Approximately 5 million won. And the clinic. Min-woo pulled up another file confirmed. She visited a private clinic in Gangnam 3 days ago. They ran an ultrasound. The staff confirmed triplets. Tae Jin leaned back in his chair, mind calculating. She needed money to disappear. To survive. She wasn't stealing. She was escaping. Do we continue the search? If you'd run to protect your children, subscribe to Afro Korean Drama TV and tell me where you're watching from. Tae Jin stared at the frozen image of Amara on the screen. Hood pulled low, shoulders tense, hand pressed protectively over her stomach even then. Yes, he said finally, but quietly. I don't want her scared. I want her safe. Min-woo nodded and left. Alone again, Tae Jin opened his desk drawer and pulled out a small object. A hairpin Amara had left on his pillow the morning after Simple. Cheap metal shaped like a flower. He'd kept it without knowing why. Now he understood. She'd left part of herself behind, a ghost he couldn't exorcise. He dialed another number, this one encrypted, routed through 3 countries. I need information on anyone who might use a pregnant woman against me, he said when the line connected. And I need it yesterday. Because if he'd learned anything in 15 years of surviving Seoul's underworld, it was this. Vulnerability was blood in the water, and sharks were always circling 3 months past, then 6, then a year. Tae Jin's men searched bus stations, interviewed clerks, tracked financial records. But Amara had vanished as thoroughly as smoke. No credit cards, no digital footprint, no witnesses who remembered her face. Min-woo stood in the office on the first anniversary of her disappearance, hesitant. Boss, maybe it's time to… Don't. Tae Jin's voice was sharp. She doesn't want to be found. We've exhausted every lead, then find new leads. But even Tae Jin knew the truth. Amara was gone, and with her the children he'd never know. He became colder after that. More isolated. His empire expanded. More territory, more violence, more control. But his bedroom remained empty. His nights remained sleepless. And in a small coastal apartment in Busan, Amara rocked 3 newborns to sleep, whispering promises she prayed she could keep. I'll protect you, she murmured to Ji-hoon, Min-jun, and Hannah. He'll never find us. You'll never know his world. But even as she spoke the words, she wondered if she was lying to herself, because men like Kim Tae Jin didn't forget. They hunted, and eventually they found. Mommy, why does Min-jun draw scary eyes? Amara looked up from the cafe counter where she was wiping down espresso stains. Hannah stood in the doorway of the back room, clutching her stuffed rabbit, her own eyes wide with 4-year-old curiosity. What do you mean, sweetheart? Hannah held up a crumpled drawing, crayon lines, forming a tall figure with sharp, dark eyes that seemed to pierce through the paper. Min-jun's signature scrawl marked the bottom corner. Amara's chest tightened. She knelt down, forcing a smile. It's just his imagination. Like when you collect feathers. But Ji-hoon asked him about it. Min-jun said the man visits him in dreams. The bell above the cafe door chimed. A customer entered. Amara tucked the drawing into her apron pocket and stood. Go play with your brothers, okay? We'll talk about it later. Hannah nodded and skipped away, oblivious to the cold dread settling in her mother's stomach. 5 years. 5 years of hiding, working double shifts, building a quiet life in Busan's coastal anonymity. The triplets were healthy, curious, full of life. Ji-hoon was serious beyond his years, always watching, always protecting his siblings. Min-jun was clever and playful, solving puzzles meant for children twice his age. Hannah was gentle, collecting feathers she insisted were gifts from guardian angels. They never asked about their father. Not directly. But lately the questions had grown sharper, Miss Park. 1 Americano, please. Amara snapped back to the present, smile automatic, hands moving through the familiar routine. This cafe job paid barely enough, but it was safe. The owner, Mr. Han, was a widower who asked no questions and paid in cash. Her second job, tutoring English to elementary students, covered the rest. She'd never remarried, never dated. The memory of one night 5 years ago still haunted her in ways she couldn't articulate. Outside, the ocean crashed against the breakwater. Busan smelled like salt and fish markets and freedom. But today, something felt wrong. A black sedan with Seoul plates had been parked across the street for 2 hours. Tinted windows. Engine idling occasionally. Watching. Amara's hands trembled as she steamed milk. That evening, as she walked the triplets home from the community centre, she felt eyes on her back. The black sedan followed 3 blocks behind, keeping distance but never disappearing. "Mommy, why are you walking so fast?" Ji-hoon tugged her hand. "Just tired, baby. Let's get home." Their apartment was small, 2 bedrooms, a kitchen barely big enough for 4, but it was theirs. Amara locked the door behind them and checked every window while the children changed into pajamas. The sedan was parked outside. She pulled the curtain shut and tried to steady her breathing. Maybe she was paranoid. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She let it go to voicemail. It rang again. And again. On the 4th call, she answered. Amara Park. The voice was male, unfamiliar, speaking Korean with a slight accent. "We've been looking for you." Her blood turned to ice. "Who is this? Friends of Kim Tae Jin, or rather people he's hurt? We've been watching his old connections for years, waiting for something useful. Imagine our surprise when we found you. I don't know what you're talking about." 3 children, all with his eyes. Very touching. The man's tone turned sharp. "You have 2 options. Cooperate and we use you to draw him out. Refuse and we take what we need by force." Min-jun appeared in the hallway, rubbing his eyes. "Mommy, who are you talking to?" Amara covered the phone. "Go back to bed, sweetheart." The voice on the line chuckled. "Smart boy. He looks just like his father." She hung up and immediately dialed the only number she'd sworn never to call again. Her hands shook so badly she misdialed twice before getting it right. It rang 4 times. Then, "Hello," Mrs. Park's voice. Older now. Tired. "It's me," Amara whispered, a sharp intake of breath. "Child, where are you?" "Busan. But they found me." "The Red Lotus triad. They're outside my apartment right now. They know about the children." Mrs. Park cursed, a rare break in her usual composure. "Listen to me carefully. You need to come back to Seoul tonight." "Are you insane?" "That's exactly what they—" "The mansion is the only place they won't follow you into Tae Jin's territory is still absolute. They wouldn't dare cross that line without starting a full war." Amara's mind raced. "He'll kill me. He's been looking for me for 5 years. He stopped looking 3 years ago. And he won't kill you." Mrs. Park's voice softened. "He's not the same man you left, Amara. Colder, yes. More isolated. But he's never touched another woman. Never stopped keeping your room exactly as you left it." "That doesn't mean—" A brick crashed through the living room window. Glass exploded inward. The children screamed. Amara dropped the phone and ran to them, pulling all 3 into the bedroom and slamming the door. "Mommy!" Hannah was crying, clutching her rabbit. Ji-hoon stood in front of his sisters, small fists clenched despite the terror in his eyes. "It's okay. I'll protect us." Amara's heart shattered. He was 4 years old and already trying to be a man. She grabbed her emergency bag, always packed, always ready, and lifted Hannah onto her hip. "We're leaving right now. Don't ask questions, just hold my hands." They fled through the back entrance as footsteps pounded up the front stairs. The alley behind the building was dark, narrow. Amara ran toward the bus station, children stumbling to keep up. "Where are we going?" Min-jun panted. "Somewhere safe." Ji-hoon's voice was small. "Are we going to see our dad?" Amara didn't answer. She couldn't. The train to Seoul departed at 11 p.m. Amara bought tickets with the last of her cash reserves and herded the children into a private compartment. They were exhausted, frightened, clinging to each other. "Try to sleep," she whispered, pulling blankets over their small bodies. But sleep wouldn't come for her. She stared out the window as Busan's lights faded, replaced by darkness and the rhythmic clatter of tracks. With every kilometre, she moved closer to the man she'd spent 5 years running from, the man whose children now slept against her shoulder, the man who'd once held her like she mattered, then paid her like she didn't. Have you ever had to face someone from your past? Comment your experience and where you're watching from? What would he do when he saw them? Would he believe they were his? Would he care? Ji-hoon stirred, mumbling in his sleep. Scary eyes. Don't hurt, Mommy. Amara stroked his hair, tears burning her throat. Min-jun had been drawing Tae Jin's face for months. Some genetic echo reaching through blood and dreams, connecting father to son across a distance neither had chosen. The train arrived at Seoul Station at 2 a.m. The city greeted her with neon and noise and the sharp scent of ambition. Nothing had changed, everything had changed. She carried Hannah and held the boys' hands as they navigated the station. A taxi. An address she'd memorized but never thought she'd use again. The mansion loomed above the city exactly as she remembered. Cold, imposing, a fortress built on blood, money and broken loyalties. The gate was locked, security cameras tracked their approach. Amara pressed the intercom button, heart hammering. Static. Then, yes? It's Amara Park. I need to speak with Mrs. Park. A long pause. Wait there. 5 minutes stretched into eternity. The children huddled close, sensing her fear. Then the gate clicked open. Mrs. Park appeared in the doorway, older but still sharp-eyed. She saw Amara, saw the children, and her expression crumpled. Oh, child. You should have come back sooner. Is he here? In a meeting, arms dealers from China. He won't be finished for another hour. Amara's knees almost buckled with relief. Can we stay? Just until morning, I'll figure something else out. You're not going anywhere. Mrs. Park ushered them inside. Guest wing, 3rd floor. I'll bring food and clothes. The mansion was exactly as Amara remembered and completely foreign. The children stared at marble floors, crystal chandeliers, hallways that seemed to stretch forever. This was their father's world, opulent and hollow. Mrs. Park settled them into a suite with 3 beds and a bathroom larger than Amara's entire Busan apartment. She brought rice, soup, clean pajamas. He doesn't know you're here yet, the older woman said quietly. I'll tell him in the morning. Give you time to prepare. How do I prepare for this? Mrs. Park looked at the triplets. Ji-hoon already asleep. Min-jun and Hannah eating slowly, exhaustion evident in every movement. You don't, she said. You just survive it. Amara didn't sleep. She sat by the window watching Seoul's lights, waiting for dawn and the reckoning it would bring. At 6 a.m., footsteps echoed in the hallway. Heavy, purposeful. A knock at the door. Miss Park. Choi Min-woo's voice, carefully neutral. The boss would like to see you alone. Amara's mouth went dry. The children, Mrs. Park will watch them. Now, please. She followed him through corridors that felt like a maze, each turn taking her deeper into the lion's den. They stopped at a familiar door. Tae Jin's office. Min-woo knocked once and opened it. Kim Tae Jin stood with his back to the entrance, staring out at the city 5 years, had carved new lines into his posture. Shoulders rigid, spine straight, the bearing of a man who'd forgotten how to relax. You have exactly 10 seconds to tell me why I shouldn't kill you. His voice was colder than she remembered, sharper. The warmth she'd glimpsed once was buried under layers of ice. Amara stepped forward, fists clenched, because they'll kill your children if I don't stay here. Silence. Tae Jin turned slowly. His face was exactly as Min-jun had drawn it. Sharp features, dark eyes that missed nothing. But there was something new, something hollow. He looked at her like she was a ghost. He couldn't decide whether to embrace or exercise children. The word came out rough. Triplets. Ji-hoon, Min-jun, and Hannah. They're 4 years old and they look exactly like you. His jaw tightened. You stole my children. I saved them from your world. That wasn't your choice to make. Yes, it was. Her voice rose despite her fear. You paid me like a prostitute. You never looked back. What was I supposed to think? That you'd suddenly want to be a father? The silence that followed was suffocating. Tae Jin's hands curled into fists at his sides, then slowly released. He crossed the room in 3 strides and stopped inches from her. Where are they? Guest wing? Asleep? Show me. She led him through the mansion, Min-woo trailing behind. Every step felt like walking toward an execution. When they reached the suite, Mrs. Park stood guard outside. "They're resting, sir," she said carefully. Tae Jin didn't respond. He opened the door quietly and stepped inside. 3 small figures lay tangled in blankets. Ji-hoon in the middle, one arm thrown protectively over Hannah Min-jun, curled on the edge, thumb in his mouth. Morning light filtered through curtains, painting them in soft gold. Tae Jin froze. For the first time in 5 years, the mask cracked. His eyes widened, then narrowed, cycling through emotions too fast to name shock. Rage, wonder, grief. Ji-hoon stirred, sensing the presence. His eyes opened, dark, sharp, meeting his father's gaze with eerie recognition. "Don't yell at my mum." The boy's voice was small but firm. Tae Jin stared at his son, at this tiny, fierce creature who bore his face, his defiance, his refusal to back down. Slowly, carefully, he knelt to eye level. "You look just like I did," he whispered, "before I became a monster." Ji-hoon frowned. "Are you our dad?" The question hung in the air, heavy with years of absence and longing neither could name. Tae Jin's throat worked. He looked up at Amara standing in the doorway with tears streaming silently down her face. "Yes," he said finally, "I'm your father." And for the first time in 5 years, Kim Tae Jin felt something other than emptiness. He felt terror. "Boss, we have a problem." Choi Min-woo stood in the doorway of Tae Jin's office, tablet in hand, expression grim. It was day 3 of Amara's return, and the mansion had settled into an uneasy rhythm, children exploring under Mrs. Park's watchful eye. Amara avoiding Tae Jin except during tense dinners, and the man himself struggling to reconcile fatherhood with the violence that defined him. Tae Jin looked up from the contracts he'd been pretending to read. What now? Red Lotus made contact. They know Amara's here. They want to negotiate. There's nothing to negotiate. Min-woo set the tablet down, showing surveillance footage. They're positioned at 3 points around the perimeter watching. Waiting, and they sent this. He played a video message. A man in his 50s, scar bisecting his left eyebrow, smiled at the camera with the confidence of someone who'd already won, Kim Tae Jin. "I am Chun-hee, Red Lotus Operations Director. You destroyed my brothers 5 years ago in Itaewon. Killed 12 men over a territorial dispute you could have negotiated. I've waited patiently for something I could take from you." His smile widened. "Now I have 3 somethings. Pretty little children with your eyes." The video cut off. Tae Jin's knuckles went white against the desk edge. Increased security, triple shifts. No one enters or leaves without clearance already done. "But boss," Min-woo hesitated, "they're professionals. If they want in, they'll find a way. Then we don't give them a reason to try. Where are the children now?" "Garden. Mrs. Park is supervising." Tae Jin stood abruptly and strode toward the east wing. Min-woo followed, phone already in hand, coordinating with the security team. The garden was deceptively peaceful. Manicured hedges, koi pond, stone pathways designed by a landscape architect who'd never seen violence. Hannah crouched by the water's edge, fingers trailing through lily pads. Min-jun climbed a cherry tree despite Mrs. Park's protests. Ji-hoon stood apart, watching his siblings with the same protective intensity Tae Jin recognized from mirrors. "Down from there, young man," Mrs. Park called up to Min-jun. "If you fall and crack your head, I won't fall. I'm good at climbing. That's what they all say before gravity teaches them humility." Tae Jin approached quietly. Ji-hoon noticed first, body tensing, positioning himself between his father and sisters. The boy had barely spoken to him in 3 days, barely looked at him. "I'm not going to hurt them," Tae Jin said. "That's what scary people always say. Fair assessment." Tae Jin knelt, meeting his son's gaze at eye level. "You're right to protect them. That's what family does." You don't know anything about family. The words cut deeper than intended. Ji-hoon's face immediately showed regret, but he didn't apologize, just held his ground. You're right about that too, Tae Jin admitted. But I'm learning. Before Ji-hoon could respond, Hannah appeared at Tae Jin's elbow, startling both of them. She held out a black feather, perfectly intact. For you, she said simply. The angels said you need protection. Tae Jin took the feather, something uncomfortable shifting in his chest. Thank you. Do you believe in angels? No. That's sad. Hannah tilted her head, studying him. Mommy says everyone has a guardian angel, even bad people. Maybe especially bad people because they need more help. From the tree, Min-jun called down, Are you a bad person? 3 pairs of eyes fixed on Tae Jin waiting. Mrs. Park watched from a distance, hand pressed to her heart. Yes, Tae Jin said. I've done terrible things. Hurt people who didn't deserve it. Built everything you see around you on fear and blood. Then why should we stay here? Ji-hoon's voice trembled slightly, because right now I'm the only thing standing between you and worse people, and because... He stopped, throat tight. Because I want to be better for you. Min-jun climbed down from the tree, dropped to the ground with a thud, and walked over. He stared at Tae Jin with unsettling intensity. I've been dreaming about you since I was little, the boy said. You were always in a dark room, looking sad. Mommy said it was just my imagination, but I knew you were real. Tae Jin's hands clenched. What else did you dream? That you were looking for us, that you were angry. Mommy took us away, but also, Min-jun frowned, searching for words, also lonely. The assessment was too accurate, too raw. Get inside, Tae Jin said abruptly, standing. All of you. Now. Mrs. Park sensed the shift in his tone. Children, let's go. Snack time. They obeyed, though Ji-hoon threw one last distrustful look over his shoulder. When they were gone, Tae Jin turned to Min-woo. I want surveillance on every delivery, every vendor, every person who comes within 100 meters of this property, and get Amara. We need to talk. Amara sat across from Tae Jin in his office, arms crossed defensively. They'd barely spoken since her arrival, logistics through Mrs. Park. Terse exchanges during meals, careful avoidance of anything real. The Red Lotus knows we're here, he said without preamble. They're planning something. Her face went pale. When? I don't know. But they're patient, professional. They'll wait for the perfect moment, so what do we do? You stay here. Don't leave the mansion. Don't let the children out of your sight. We can't hide forever. We don't have to, just long enough for me to eliminate the threat. Amara leaned forward. You mean kill them? I mean protect my children. They wouldn't be in danger if you weren't. She stopped herself, but the words hung anyway. If I wasn't a monster, Tae Jin finished coldly. You're right. But I can't change what I am, Amara. I can only control what I do next. And what's that? Murder an entire gang? Create more enemies? This is why I ran. This is exactly why. Why didn't you tell me? The question derailed her momentum. She stared at him, emotions warring across her face. Because you paid me like a... she said finally, voice breaking. Because you didn't even stay to see me wake up. Because I was terrified you'd either lock me away or use our babies as weapons, and I couldn't let them grow up in this. Tae Jin's jaw worked. I didn't know what that night meant. No one had ever. He stopped, frustration evident. I'm not good at this, at feelings, at being human. Then learn. Because they deserve better than a father who only knows violence. I'm trying. The admission came out rough. Every time Ji-hoon looks at me like I'm a stranger, every time Hannah offers me one of her feathers, every time Min-jun draws my face, I'm trying. Silence stretched between them, fragile and heavy. I never stopped thinking about you, Amara whispered. 5 years I told myself I hated you, but every time the children asked about their father, I remembered the way you held me that night. Like I mattered. like I was more than invisible. Before Tae Jin could respond, the office door burst open. Min-woo, phone pressed to his ear, face ashen. Boss. They have Min-jun. The world stopped. It happened during a supply delivery, a truck carrying groceries, vetted, approved, familiar. But the driver had been replaced. The guard at the gate had been bribed, and in the 60 seconds between entering the compound and reaching the kitchen, someone had grabbed Min-jun from the garden. Security footage showed it all. A man in a delivery uniform moving fast, hand over the boy's mouth. Min-jun struggling, kicking, then going limp, chloroformed, the man disappearing through a service entrance that shouldn't have been unlocked inside job. One guard paid off. One moment of weakness. And now Min-jun was gone. Amara collapsed when they told her, animal sounds tearing from her throat. Ji-hoon and Hannah clung to Mrs. Park, both crying. The mansion erupted into controlled chaos, guards mobilizing, weapons distributed, every resource activated, but Tae Jin stood utterly still in the center of the storm, staring at the frozen image of his son being carried away. Boss. Min-woo's voice was careful. We have a location. Warehouse in Incheon. Red Lotus territory. They're waiting for you. It's a trap. Of course it's a trap. But they have Min-jun Tae Jin turn to Amara, who was shaking so hard Mrs. Park had to support her. Their eyes met across the chaos, and something passed between them, understanding without words. I'll bring him back, Tae Jin said. Promise me. Amara's voice was raw. Promise me you'll bring my baby back. I promise even if it kills me. He loaded his weapons with methodical precision. Glock 19, backup knife, body armor. Min-woo assembled a team, 12 men, all loyal, all willing to die. But Tae Jin knew this wasn't about numbers. It was about one father against an organization that wanted him broken. Before leaving, he knelt in front of Ji-hoon. The boy's face was streaked with tears, small fists clenched. I'm going to get your brother, Tae Jin said quietly. What if they kill you? Then Min-woo will take care of you and your mother, and Hannah. I've made arrangements. I don't want arrangements. Ji-hoon's voice cracked. I want Min-jun back. I want us to be safe. He threw himself at Tae Jin, small arms wrapping around his neck. I want you to come back too. Tae Jin held his son for the first time, feeling the tiny heartbeat against his chest, and made a choice. He would burn the world to ash before losing this. The warehouse was abandoned, industrial, perfect for an ambush. Tae Jin's convoy arrived at midnight, headlights cutting through fog rolling off the bay. They parked a block away and approached on foot. Weapons ready. Spread out, Tae Jin ordered quietly. 3 teams. Cover all exits. Anyone not us. Shoot first. They moved like shadows through rusted machinery and stacked containers. Then, in the center of the warehouse, under a single hanging bulb, they found Min-jun. The boy sat tied to a chair, tape over his mouth, eyes wide with terror but unharmed. Behind him, Chun-hee and 6 armed men waited. Kim Tae Jin. Chun-hee's voice echoed, punctual as always. Let him go. In a moment. First, we talk about reparations. 5 years ago, you killed my brothers over a shipping route. Now I want... Tae Jin shot him in the shoulder before he finished. The sound cracked through the warehouse. Chun-hee staggered, gasping. I didn't come here to negotiate, Tae Jin said coldly. I came for my son. Chaos erupted. Gunfire exploded from all sides. Tae Jin's men engaged Red Lotus reinforcements hidden in the shadows. Bullets tore through metal, ricocheting off concrete. Tae Jin moved through it like death itself. Focused on one thing. Min-jun. He took 3 bullets, shoulder, side, thigh, but didn't stop. Reached the chair, cut the ropes. Pulled the tape gently from his son's mouth. Dad, Min-jun's voice was small, terrified. I've got you. He lifted the boy, shielding him with his body. An explosion rocked the building. C4 set as insurance. The structure groaned, metal beams twisting. Fire bloomed in the corners. Min-woo shouted into his comm, Fall back! Building's coming down! Tae Jin ran through smoke and flame. Min-jun pressed tight against his chest. The boy was crying, hands gripping his father's jacket behind them. The warehouse collapsed in a screaming cascade of steel and fire. They made it out with seconds to spare, stumbling into the parking lot as the building imploded. Tae Jin fell to his knees, still holding Min-jun, blood soaking through his clothes. "Are you okay?" he gasped. "Did they hurt you?" Min-jun shook his head, then wrapped his arms around Tae Jin's neck. "You came. You really came." Always Tae Jin's vision blurred. "For you. For all of you. Always." Minwoo appeared, pulling them toward the vehicles. "Boss, we need medical. You're bleeding out. Get him home first. Make sure he's safe. You're both going to the hospital." The world tilted. Tae Jin felt himself being loaded into a vehicle, Min-jun refusing to let go. Small voice whispering, "Don't die, Dad. Please don't die." And in that moment, bleeding, exhausted, finally understanding what it meant to have something worth living for, Tae Jin made another choice: he would survive, because his children needed him.